This is very interesting. So Prabhupada is tapasya, and he gives, it seems, so far I have counted 3. One is read the books, understand the Vidya Tattva of Krishna. Second is morning program. And this is cleaning and respecting Krishna in wherever we can serve him. It seems 3 things he's giving us as tapasya.
Okay. That is the whole picture of the talk, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Du meinst, you mean Govashtaka 3, this verse. No, another verse that he was originally talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know what that verse was.
This was 551, Shabada. I think that's where he took it. Tapa.
The class is about 551. Srimad Bhagavatam 551. So that is, if I remember it correctly, what is the name of that incarnation?
Rishabhadeva.
Yeah, Rishabhadeva talking to his sons, starting to talk to his sons. Okay, we have the 5th canto here, but I won't get into it.
Prabhu mentions that this specific chapter, especially for sannyasis.
Okay.
Starting with
551, especially for sannyasis. Okay, good to know for all of us. Huh? So, anything else? So the 3 points Adi Purusha Prabhu was mentioning now. Tapasya, what were they? You remember?
Tapadiyam. First, Tapadiyam, reading Prabhupada's book.
Okay. And then?
The second was
Morning program.
Morning program.
Whole morning program. And the last one? Don't forget to clean the temple also. Huh? So, if these things are mentioned as tapasya, as your sadhana, especially these 3 things, it means they are very important. We have so many things to do in Krishna's service, as Prabhupada points out in the end, in the last principle. Everything is Krishna, so you can serve Krishna everywhere, especially in the temple. But he's in Vrindavan here, also outside. There's no difference with Krishna. But still he gives some points that are most important. Because your time is not unlimited. You cannot do everything. So in spiritual life, it's very important to what is a good word for that? To have some preferences, something more important than the other. Otherwise, if all the service is the same, it doesn't matter. What shall you do? You do this, I do this, you clean this, I do this. So everything is the same. At the same time, there's also hierarchy. The Prabhupada is saying here, there is, how does he say it? Nothing is first class service and another thing is last class service. On this level, everything is the same. But still we also hear, and why does he point it out? Why does he point out these 3 things? Because there is things that for your personal development, your sadhana is more important than other things. Rupa Goswami is giving, for example, 64 principles of devotional service, principal devotional services, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But in the end, it is pointed out the last 5 are the most important things, most powerful. So Prabhupada is pointing out here, reading his books. So obviously, that was very important for Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada thought this was very important for the whole world, his books. To write books about Krishna consciousness and that people read it. Especially that we read them, devotees. We want to understand Bhakti. We want to understand this movement. We want to engage in this movement. How do we understand properly what this movement is and what to do? Without studying Srila Prabhupada's books, you won't have a clear idea about it. And it's not such an easy thing. Otherwise, one book would be enough, no? Why so many books? Why more than 50 books? There are many details to be learned. So Prabhupada's books obviously are very, very, very important. You know that there is this statement by Srila Prabhupada that books are the basis. Everything else builds on the books. Prabhupada himself, he didn't come to the West without books. Before he prepared already books, before he went. So books are the basis. Once there was a question by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and I remember this because it had some impact on me, that she was asking, Prabhupada, can we not just chant Hare Krishna? And this is our service, and just do that. No, it's the most important thing, to chant Hare Krishna. Can we not just have that? And Prabhupada said, well, your spiritual master has written books also. Why do you think this is so? Why do you think I'm writing all these books? Obviously, something very important for our spiritual life, to study Srila Prabhupada's books. So, and the next thing is, he mentioned, is the morning program. If you take part, if you are, if you are so fortunate that you are staying in a temple, then take advantage of the temple by especially taking part in the morning program, in the full morning program. That is also my own Guru Maharaj is stressing so much all the time. I remember when I was a young devotee, I was a few months in the movement, and I was living in this temple here. My first 10 years in Krishna consciousness, serious Krishna consciousness, I would say, was in this temple. And I had a question in the end of the Bhagavatam class. Something kind of difficult to solve, also my own mental thing. I'm quite into my mind. It's my nature to always think about this. And so my question was kind of, in a sense, well, how not to get frustrated. And I meant getting frustrated in the temple also. Because there are things that are not going so well, that you went, oh no, I cannot tolerate this and that. And then he told me, look, you are in the temple, take part in the whole morning program. If you go to Mangal Artik and dance and sing before the deity, and then you chant 16 good rounds, and then we have Prabhupada puja, and before we were worshipping Tulsi, and then the Bhagavatam class. If you really do this with full attention, how can you be frustrated, depressed? is not possible. If you really do it, if you really participate, and all the 10 years I was living here, I was following this principle, and one day after another, it proved to be true. You get up with a certain mind, hopefully early in the morning, especially when you are in the temple, with a certain mind, and after 5 hours of Krishna conscious program, of temple program, your mind has changed. Or if not, I think it's almost possible that it doesn't change, even if you do everything wrong, but you take part in the program. But what to speak of really putting your attention in it, really putting your heart and everything into it, what you are doing. Chanting good rounds, not chanting just your rounds somehow, but really put your full heart and full endeavor in it. Then it's sure that the sun, the bright sun of Krishna consciousness shines in your mind and your heart. So, this is another thing that Srila Prabhupada gave us. The books, so much endeavor to write the books, preparing already in all his life to present his books, and writing them at night. And then he also gave us a morning program. Why do you think in the temple we have the morning program? And why it is exactly like this? Because it's very systematic. Going to the morning program, you cover all the 5 most important principles that Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of devotional service. So just take part, and you have already harnessed the most important power of sadhana bhakti, of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, and then some practical service also, cleaning the temple is also something of my personal experience. Before moving to the temple, I was living in Wetzlarer Straße. Does anyone know where Wetzlarer Straße is? This is Taunusstraße, okay? You go down a little bit and then to the right, it's Wetzlarer Straße. I was living 5 minutes from the temple. So before moving into the temple, I came to the temple for quite some time. In the beginning, mainly because of the restaurant. There was a restaurant here, and I was interested in vegetarian food, so that's how I got into it, into the temple. And after some time, after some years, not very many years, but some years, I became more interested in what was going on in the temple and in devotional service. Actually, it came from several things, also prasadam, but my real interest was awakened by starting to reading books from Srila Prabhupada, which were on the shelf in the restaurant. They had some books. And especially for one period of time, there was someone serving the food in the restaurant who was so slow, you cannot imagine. It took 1 hour until I had my food. I came into the restaurant and it took 1 hour until I had the food before me to eat. And I knew it could be different, because before I went to the restaurant also 1 or 2 years before, it was not like that. It took 10 minutes or something like that. Maybe you think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It took 1 hour. And no one understood why it took so long, also not the temple president. But still, they left her there a few months, so I was waiting for 1 hour for the food. And I knew that after some time, okay, this devotee is there, it would take 1 hour. So there were the books, and I took the Bhagavad Gita and started reading the Bhagavad Gita. In this way, by Krishna's mercy, that the food came so late, I became convinced this is something serious. Before I was just thinking this is food and some freaky people who are nice people, but anyway, the food is good. So But by reading the books, I understand, oh, this is something important. There is wow, there is some substance. Let me explore a little bit more. So somehow I came to the point that I want to come now, that cleaning the temple, I didn't go to the programs, but somehow they found out I'm studying engineering. The devotees found out, so maybe I can do something practical. So they asked me to repair the washing machine, to do some other thing in the restaurant, and in this way I was engaged in the practical service in the temple. And I found out that this was very pleasurable. I couldn't explain it to myself because I can do the same things at home or in my mother's place or with some friend, but it was not the same. And especially I remember one moment I was cleaning the stairs because I found it pleasurable. It gave me a lot of happiness to do something in the temple. So I came more often and I was asking, what can I do? So I was cleaning the stairs from top to down. And when I was completely down, I cleaned the whole stairs, and when I was completely down on the last steps, one devotee was looking at me and told me, "Your face is very blissful." And at that time, I didn't know the word bliss even. I had quite a good level of English, more or less what I have now, and I didn't know the word bliss. So I thought, what is that, bliss? She said, it's extreme condensed happiness. And in that moment, I noticed it was true. I was just so blissful. And what had I done? Just cleaning the stairs, an ordinary thing that is annoying me when I have to do it at home. Here I do it in the temple and I'm so blissful. Anyway, this is the power of devotion and service. And Prabhupada is pointing these things out as tapasya. But if you really do it, you will find it very enjoyable. You cannot stop doing it. You are so-called tapasya. Any comments on this or questions? Yeah.
Just one small point about these three things. I found it's very interesting that those who like to distribute books for more than 10 years, you can see that usually they are quite inspired also to read.
Mm.
I heard that our Vallabha reads seriously every day before going out. And I know Vaisheshika Prabhu, he's developed a whole big program for reading, not himself, but for everybody. Yeah, inspiring the whole world to read. Other devotees I know personally who are book distributors for decades, they make sure to do all these three things: to read, to come to Mangalarati usually, very serious, and also some practical service they will do in the temple. So it's not against book distribution. You can see on the contrary, it gives them taste.
Yeah.
Actually, when you do book distribution for a while, you become qualified to do anything. Because you learn how to surrender. I remember here in Germany, at one point when Harikesh was here, all the temple presidents were former Sankirtan devotees. And they were the best for this service. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah. When I joined here, the temple president was also a former Sankirtan devotee, a Sangha. Not many of you might know her, and she was a great book distributor. She won marathons and so on. And at one point, fortunate for me and many others, she started the temple here with a restaurant and everything.
And
Yeah.
She's got a huge donation. The house was
Yeah.
donated because of her preaching.
And we are still taking advantage of her service. Yeah.
What's the name?
Asanga.
Asanga.
She passed away last year, I think. She passed away, but she's also the reason why I joined, obviously. Otherwise, one reason, but an important reason, because otherwise I was living there if the temple hadn't been here. So what? Couldn't have even started. My first contact with ISKCON, with Krishna, the Hare Krishna movement, was also because of the temple. I got a book in Köln train station because the book distributors were there. Of course, the temple is here. If they want to go anywhere, they have to go, unless they start by car, they have to go there. So frequently the region was frequented also by book distributor, and I got a book also. So before, I'd never heard, in my hometown Bielefeld, I've never heard of the Hare Krishnas. I didn't know this existed. I haven't seen anything on TV. I've never seen them. I have no contact. It was only here, close to the temple. Why? Because the temple was here. Why? Because Asanga Mataji, she made this temple possible. And we're still taking advantage of this.
This is Mataji, not Prabhu.
No. Asanga Prabhu Mataji. She is a master also of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. She won marathons against the Prabhus. She was very good, and she inspired me so much with her Sankirtan spirit. She was just inspiring. Personally inspiring me. And many others. Okay, time for Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah? I'm always talking too much. I'm always talking too much, so...
As soon as you start speaking, it's into ecstasy for me.
So which verse is it? 5.1.5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 1, text 5. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Badam Uktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimak Charanavinda Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetaso Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daita Katam Kinchit Antaraya Vihatam Swam Shivatamam Paravim Na Prayena Invanti Shishuka Uvacha Badam Muktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimak.
Badam Muktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimak.
I don't really know if this can be really chanted like this, Because it was the fifth canto, it's starting with many tags that don't rhyme, they don't have a verse rhyme, it's just a long sentence. Anyway, we can try to continue like this. Or is it chanted like this, Guru Maharaj, at all?
It's prose, gadya. It's not a verse.
So how do we chant it then?
Just like you don't. I mean, you chant.
Charana makaranda rasa aveshita chetaso bhagavata Paramahamsa dayita katam kinchit antaraya vihatam swam Shiva tamam paravim na prayena hinvanti. Okay, someone wants to try?
Padam muktam bhagavata uttama shlokasya Srimad Charana ravinda makaranga rasa avishita chetaso bhagavata Paramahamsa dayita katam kinchi antaraya vihatam svam Shiva tamam padavim na prayena hinvati
Noch jemand, bitte? Someone else, please.
Bhagavatam Bhagavata Uttama Shloka Srimad
Padam muktam bhagavata uttama shlokasya Srimad
Charanarinda Makaranda Rasa Avishita Chetaso Bhagavata
Charanarinda makaranda rasa avishita chetaso bhagavata
Paramahamsa Daitya Katam Kinchit Antaraya Vihatam Svam
Paramahamsa dayita katam kinchit antaraya vihatam svam
Shivatmam Pradavina Prayana Hinvanti
Shivanamam padavim naprayena hinvanti
Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha
Shri Shukadev Goswami said,
Shri Shukadev Goswami said
Badam,
Badam
correct,
correct
Uktam,
Uttam
what you have said,
what you have said
Bhagavata,
Bhagavata
of the personality of Godhead,
of the personality of God
Uttama Shlokasya,
Uttama Shlokasya
who is praised with excellent verses,
whose praise for its excellent verses
Srimad Charana Ravinda,
Srimad Charana Ravinda
of the feet which are just like the most beautiful, fragrant lotus flowers. Of the feet which are just like the most beautiful, fragrant lotus flowers. Makaranda, honey. Rase, in the nectar. Avishita, absorbed. Chetasa, whose hearts. Bhagavata,
Bhagavata,
to the devotees,
to the devotees,
Paramahamsa,
Paramahamsa,
liberated persons,
liberated persons,
Dayita,
Dayita,
pleasing,
pleasing,
Katam,
Katam,
glorification,
glorification,
Kinchit,
Kinchit,
sometimes,
sometimes,
Antaraya,
Antaraya,
by impediments,
by impediments,
Vihatam,
Vihatam,
checked,
check,
Swam,
Svam,
on, Shivatamam,
Shivatamam,
most exalted,
most exalted,
Padavim,
Padavim,
position,
position,
Na,
Na,
do not,
do not,
Prayena,
Prayena,
almost always,
almost always,
Invanti,
Invanti,
give up.
give up.
Sri Shukadev Goswami said, what you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent, transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired. And now is a long purport, 2 pages, 2.5. Sri Shukadev Goswami accepted both of the king's propositions, that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Shukadev Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, there are 2 kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aparat. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aparat, which he described as a mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, he destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparat is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. This Vaishnava Aparat is one kind of impediment of devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. Nanu? For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. But by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuva and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. But this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments. Yet, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kauntaya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Once one has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. In this verse, the word Shiva Tamam is very significant. Shiva Tamam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. This is described in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. Pata naiveha namutra vinashas tasya vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for a devotee, therefore, there is no questioning of being lost, either in this life or in the next. This is from Bhagavad Gita 6.40. In Bhagavad Gita 6.43, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labate pauva dehikam yatate cha tato bhuya samsidau kurunandana. By the order of the Lord, the perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to surrounding circumstances, he automatically perseveres in devotional service and gradually advances until he once again becomes perfect. Bilva Mangala Thakur had been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in his next life he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees, there are many such instances, proving that once one has taken to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kauntaya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. The fact is, however, that one becomes a devotee when he is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 7.28, Yesham tvanta gatam papam jananam punya kamanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dritavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj said, Matir na Krishne parata svatova mito bipatyeta grihavratanam. A person who is too attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. These apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and therefore a devotee is never bereft of his position on the path of liberation, which is described in this verse as Shiva Tamam Padavim. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarupyasta Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, any questions or comments on this verse or the long purport. Yeah.
In the purport, we read that somebody who took Krishna consciousness will never come back to materialistic life. Who really took it, and vice versa also. No? My question is, what does it mean a material life? So, because very often we are conducting devotional service, but we are still acting in a materialistic way. So, what does it mean when it's meant the person cannot act in materialistic? Do you understand what I mean? Because we are all, even if we are not conducting sins, very gross things, but we still make mistakes, which materialistic people also do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we are still acting on from the materialistic point of view. This is the question. And still, even if we are very advanced, we are not. It's very, very difficult not to commit these mistakes.
Of acting in a materialistic way, even being devotee. So you wouldn't make this sharp difference between now I'm a devotee and now I'm going back to material life, and now a materialist, now he's, so you think what you are saying is, well, usually it's kind of mixed thing. Yeah. So there's a comment, no? Or is a question?
A question.
Yeah, the question is, for me, also, because it said here, once one has been a devotee, one never falls back to materialistic life. No? I mean, just shortly, why is that? Because Krishna protects his devotee always. That's his promise in the Bhagavad Gita and in other places. You cannot fall back to material life. You can seemingly go back to material life, engage your senses with the sense objects, try to enjoy, but you can't really. It's only a temporary thing. You may be temporarily covered again by, that's how I understand it, by the material energy, but Prabhupada gives an example here of Bilvamangala Thakur. He became attached by a prostitute. How is this possible for a devotee? Advanced devotee. Well, it happened to him, but it was just for a short while. And then Krishna, because Krishna protects his devotee, Krishna arranges for something that you are taken out again. So he was so attached to that prostitute, but it happened that the prostitute was a great devotee. And she told him at one point, why are you wasting your time with this nonsense with me? If you would put the same intensity of desire and of interest that you put in me now, if you could put that on the Lord, you would be liberated already. And because he had this pious background, because he had Bhakti in his heart, quite developed, maybe temporarily covered, it came out in that moment and changed. In 1 second, he could immediately understand, he could give up everything and pick up his devotional service fully.
After that.
Okay, can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so when he was on his way to Vrindavan, he became attracted to a lady on the street, and he followed her. And this lady couldn't understand what was going on because he was obviously such an exalted, like socially also exalted person. She came back and showed her husband, and the husband said, "Yeah, so we have to serve this person. So you just have to associate with him." And then he came. He invited him into the house. And then he so what do you want? My wife. And he said, well, I'd like to be with her. And then he left them alone. And at one point, all of a sudden, he realized his fallen position. And he asked the lady, give me your pins. And she had set some pins in the hair. And he asked her for the pins. And she took a pin and stitched his eyes. So he became blind. He didn't want to commit the same mistake again. And then he went to Vrindavan. And he was so surrendered to so much shelter and Krishna always chanting. And at one time, a little boy came and he brought him milk. And he gladly accepted the milk, but then he came back and back and back. So he wondered what the little boy was. And then he realized it was Krishna who was supplying him with milk. Anyways.
Thank you. So what can we learn from this? One thing is that Maya is very strong. You have no chance to protect yourself from Maya. It's stronger than you. Only Krishna can protect you. No? This is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. This material energy consists of the three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome. What it actually means, very difficult, impossible. But somehow who surrenders unto me can cross over it very easily. Still you have to do something, but Krishna gives you all help, all protection to take out the Bhakti, the dormant love that is in your heart, and to understand that everything that Maya can offer you is only Shrot. What is the English word for Shrot? Garbage. But the power of Maya is very strong, especially in the form of sex desire. If you are very strongly immersed in sex desire, makes you crazy. Like other things, Maya makes you crazy in general, but especially this kind of thing amongst a few hours. But the devotee is protected. So, but my question is, at what point are we a devotee that Krishna takes it seriously? Now we are a devotee and he protects us. Do you know what I mean? Actually, I didn't come to your question yet, but I hope I'm still coming to it. So let us solve this problem. What do you think? At what point does Krishna, okay, he's my devotee, now he cannot, now he's always protected by me. What is the point? Do you have any proposal? Yeah?
You mean at what point we know that Krishna protects us?
Yeah. At one point does Krishna accept us as devotee? That he will always protect. Even falling bad, even committing offenses, even whatever happens, temporarily you dive down into Maya, get another horrible taste in it, and then Krishna takes you back again.
I don't know if it's okay, but some days ago I experienced...
What's the question now?
A question.
Yeah, we are talking about at what point accepts us Krishna as devotee and he protects us forever.
So, and I was crossing the small street and a person on a bike was coming to me and almost crashed into me, just because I didn't see her and she maybe didn't see me. And at that moment, as she was almost crashing into me, it was just, yes. Somehow I shouted, Krishna! And that was, for me, it was different Krishna. Yes. I shouted Krishna really so as if I was helpless. I wanted to be protected, and in this moment I felt that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel, but I feel, I don't know, so she was passing by, she gone away, it was everything safe, everything different. But this moment was Krishna. And then This, it was just a kind of protection. No,
Yeah, but what is the point?
Exactly what you want to listen, to get like an answer. Yes.
What is the point?
But it was concrete. It was concrete.
Yeah.
It was rebellion. It was.
But I think you didn't understand the question.
Huh?
I think you didn't understand my question.
Understand the question.
The question is of course protected by Krishna, a bike comes and Krishna protects you from being hurt. But what we are talking about, Krishna's protection in this sense, is that you are not covered by Maya again and you go back to the material world and you stay here. But you will remain connected with devotional service with Krishna. This kind of protection. That is the point. So at one point is the question, does Krishna accept us as devotee? Yes?
From the point of view of Shraddha,
Yeah?
or as soon as one says Krishna, then you're my Lord, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Okay.
Then the mind can.
If you say that, so you have to say these very words.
Or you can think. No, the meaning has to be.
Yeah.
That Krishna is
The sentiment.
Yes.
Okay.
I have seen that often when devotees are in danger, without being great devotees, they take shelter in Krishna. Krishna! I was in a car accident. I was in several car accidents, and anyway, so we always used to scream, Krishna. We sing away. One time we were in a Sankirtan van, few devotees, and I was the driver, and we drove down the road. It was in the winter, coming from Switzerland, from Sankirtan. Then the car had to go left, but because it was ice and our wheels were used up, we didn't have winter wheels. Anyway, so the car just went off, and it was in the mountains, so we fell, and then the car doubled over, and it was sliding on the snow to a place where it was going down like that, and there were just 2 or 3 trees just on the edge, and the trees, they stopped us. And when it all happened, we went screaming like, every devotee. It was spontaneous, nobody had to tell them what to say. You got used to it as a devotee, you always take shelter of Krishna. Even though you might not be very advanced, but still, that's the only shelter we have.
And this, as I understand it, is a sign of a devotee. How could a non-devotee, someone who does not believe in God,
in problems, say, God!
yeah, mein Gott,
Mein Gott! Oh Dios!
Where is then the difference?
Huh?
Where is the difference?
Because these people, they have some, I say, good karma. Sukriti, yes. Yes, Sukriti. Like one guy came to see me yesterday, he was a Russian, from, what is that? Several devotees have come from that region, very on the east, like almost close to Japan.
Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. He was from Kazakhstan.
Yeah, huge guy. And he came to talk to me and he said that he was very interested in agriculture, but we wouldn't do the agriculture, so he suggested he go to the farm for some time. Anyway, so he talked about his life. And he said, I killed so many cows. But he was a devotee. Prabhu initiated one German devotee. He was a slaughter before. Right?
butcher.
Butcher. He was a butcher before. And when Prabhu initiated him in Schloss Rettershof, he told him, but don't kill any more cows, will you? Well, that's what he said. Somehow if we've been in touch with Krishna, Krishna helps us not just protecting us from the accidents, But actually, he is within the heart, so he makes us remember and give us the intelligence. No, like Krishna says, Sarva Sachahamri Girisani Vishtosmati Bhagavatam. Becomes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So Krishna helps us with this also. I mean, especially. Or he guides us from within. Like when you go down to Sankirtan for a while, Sankirtan, you take a decision, go left, and why do you go left? Because it's a person who's just wanting the books, kind of. And Krishna made the arrangement. You become an instrument, Krishna. He uses you. Especially when you go out preaching. That's how Krishna protects.
Yeah.
And everyone has this experience. Or everybody has some experience like that.
But as far as I understand, Krishna wants more. He just wants this.
Yeah, he tests you, give you more and more problems, so you can just
Yeah, so I will have to stop now the class. No problem. The problem is that we will have to stop now because there's really more to discuss on this topic, but I'm sure you will do in the coming days. So, just to summarize this point, that a devotee, whenever he's in danger, he calls out for Krishna. He has no other shelter. No? And before we have said, our definition when one becomes a devotee is that a devotee in his mind says, what is it, Krishna, you are my only shelter? Or I completely surrender unto you. This is a criterion. And so, if someone, in any circumstance, something happens, you don't have time to think when you have a car accident or other things happen, or a bike accident. If you shout out Krishna is a proof, you have made this commitment. Otherwise you couldn't do that. So that is a sign, even that you are a devotee. And Krishna makes this arrangement, interestingly, I just want to give this example, even for devotees who are so much covered that they might not be able to shout out to Krishna in situation of danger. And this is a famous example of Ajamil. He was at the point of death. He was dying, and the Yamadutas came to take him. This is the most horrible situation you can have in your life. Worse than a car accident or anything. The Yamadutas are coming and taking you to hell to be punished. So, but Krishna arranged that Ajamil named his small son, who he was very attached to, Narayan. Was it Narayan? Yeah, Narayan. So this poor guy, this devotee, his consciousness at the time of death was so covered, and he was so sinful, even the Yamadutas came to take him, and he wouldn't have been able to remember Krishna. But Krishna arranged it for him. Okay, but you are attached to your son, so you give him my name. So he was shouting Narayan, meaning his son. But then by the power of the name, his memory of the real Narayan came out. And then the Vishnudutas came, the servants of Narayan, of Vishnu, and liberated Ajamil from this situation. So Krishna goes very far in accepting you as devotee. Very, very far. We haven't been able to conclude exactly the point from which Krishna takes responsibility for you, but is very early on. He takes responsibility already. And then you may lead a life, even as a devotee, you are sometimes covered by Maya. This is the last point because I'm already 3 minutes over time. Once in a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, a devotee started to ask him a question, and he said, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes we are in Maya and sometimes we are not. And he wanted to ask a question. And Prabhupada said, you are always in Maya.
Sometimes I am in Maya.
Okay.
Because here you
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'm in Maya and sometimes I'm not. Or we are in Maya and sometimes we are not. And Srila Prabhupada said, you are always in Maya. No, he was a devotee, he was practicing devotional service. He came to the morning program, all this, but probably you're always in Maya. So, yeah?
Yeah, one thing is that Ajamil, it says in the Bhagavatam that his chanting was without any offenses. I mean, completely.
Yeah.
He's really taken shelter in this name.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, but also he said only Narayan once. You might think that Narayan. No. But he actually only said once Narayan. And immediately the bishop was discovered. Anyway, this is one thing I mean.
Yeah, so Krishna protects us under all circumstances. If we have made this commitment to Krishna only once, that we want to be his devotee. And then whatever trouble you have, if you go back to Maya or you are in Maya, you will have many problems. It just helps you to come to the point again, Krishna, Narayan, and only once is enough. And Krishna comes to help you, help us.
Otherwise, there's a saying in German, wenn ich hören will, was fühlen.
Yeah.
Especially as devotee, when you commit mistakes or do something based on lust or something, or attachment, then you have to suffer.
Yeah.
And you suffer more and more. You suffer and become stronger and stronger. So you learn it. You learn this. Wenn ich hören will, was fühlen. So ist das verständlich?
Wenn es hören will, muss.
Wer nicht hören will, muss
Wenn ich hören will, muss fühlen.
Typical German saying. Who doesn't want to hear has to feel. Yeah, Krishna has all the energy under his control. He can wake us up with whatever we need. No? Gandha Srimad Bhagavatam Gita, Srila Prabhupada Gita. Oh, danke.